Hello again, everybody. This is Craig Evans of Autism Hangout, and thank you for tuning into this Autism Hangout special report. I had a rare opportunity today to meet one of my heroes in autism, Dr. Tony Attwood, at a conference in Wisconsin that was sponsored by the AEP Connections Company. And I had a few extra moments. He's been very pressed all day, but there's a few questions I wanted to ask him just because. Dr. Tony, I just listened to a day of encouragement and enlightenment.
Oh, thank you.
And I wanted to tell you that firsthand because as a parent of a child on the spectrum, a child with Asperger's syndrome, it's very easy to get discouraged. When I was watching you today and hearing the depth of your knowledge, I was not only inspired, I was encouraged. Your attitude of hopefulness toward what these kids can be is nothing short of exemplary. And I wanted to be able to tell you that in person.
Thank you. I take that to my heart.
Okay, and I wanted to follow that up. I have come to know you mostly through the Ask Dr. Tony series where we've had one-on-one conversations in addition to your book. But one thing I know about you for sure is you genuinely care about these precious people. And I find that inspirational, but how did you come about this lifelong passion to help this population?
Wow. Oh, fantastic question. One that I've been thinking about for some time. And I'm going to give you a complex answer. It first began when I was 19, and I went as a volunteer at a special school and met two severely autistic children in 1971. And I knew a bit about child development because I've been studying psychology since I was 14. I always knew I wanted to be a psychologist since I was 14. And I'd studied the social psychology, and I also had a sister who was only 3 years old. So I knew a bit about early childhood development, and these kids challenged all the established theories of child development, not only at an intellectual level, but also at a compassionate level, because the things that were upsetting them, one of the kids, Russell, had a splinter in his finger, and he objected, not to the splinter, but for me holding his finger to pull the splinter out. When he was upset, affection and consoling didn't work. He would spend hours just rolling round and round and round or playing with water. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to make a career understanding such kids. I would love to go back to see those two children that switched me on to ASD. They must now be in their late 30s, 40s and so on, as where they are, Sarah and Russell, because they began this interest. But the next question is, how did I know? And when I look at people and meet people who work in the area, what's very common is that they have a relative with the characteristics. And so they're what I call bilingual. They understand the culture from an early age. And my stepfather, who my mother married when I was 6 years old, is an engineer. And hasn't been formally diagnosed, but I remember as a child of 6 being fascinated by his difference. That there was this person came into my life, and I thought, what planet does he come from? And I thought, this is amazing. And I also watched how my mother changed to accommodate his personality and abilities and so on. So I think from very early on, there was that component. But I also think that when you look at the genetics, you will have in a family history, people with Asperger's. But who do people with Asperger's marry? Extreme neurotypicals. And dotted within the same family will be extreme neurotypicals. So we tend to say, oh yes, there's Aspie dispersed, but there's also extreme neurotypicals, and it's extreme neurotypicals who understand Aspie. So I think in the family genetics, possibly on my side of the family too, may be a history of Aspie through the characteristics, but that means that they've got a lot of extreme neurotypical. So when we find a kid with Asperger's, there's a higher risk of brothers and sisters being Aspie, but also a higher risk, if you call it that, of brothers and sisters being extreme neurotypical. And I think that's one of the factors.
And being bilingual.
Bilingual, yes, understanding the culture. It's not strange, you know, you read the signals, you know how to calm the person down, you know how to talk their language, you know how to be direct. You can understand the special interests. And so it's not weird. What on earth are you doing? It's sort of, I know this. I feel familiar with it.
And one of the other adjectives I used in hearing your talk today is that you were so hopeful. Hope is very important when you have a child on the spectrum. In your opinion, what is most hopeful about autism today?
Well, first of all, I've been here long enough to see successes. From my sister-in-law, Penny, who would probably have been put in an institution, but because of parental support. So when we look at the successful outcomes, it's usually been a mixture of parents' acceptance of the person, but still encouraging them and knowing when to support and, very importantly, when to back off for the person to learn. It's also the personality of the individual concerned that some decide, okay, I'm not going to blame others, I'm not going to blame myself, I've got to do something about it. So there's something about that internal personality that does that. They may come across in their lives people who have given them advice and support and held their hand along the road. And so they may have met people that have not been good, but sufficient balance of that, of good people that have supported them. But also the successful outcome in part has been by a successful career, which I think is very important, a network of support within the family and support group in terms of friends or colleagues, and a sense of enjoyment of the special interests as a counterbalance to the adversity of life, an effective means of managing your emotions. We've had examples of extreme emotions. If you can conquer those, life is a lot easier. So I have seen successful outcomes, and my clinical experience and current research would suggest that about 15% of those with Asperger's move into the subclinical normal range. They're eccentric. They're what I call very British, as the British have understood Asperger's. But they can be, and I have family members and friends with Asperger's and colleagues with Asperger's syndrome. So I don't see it as a disaster. I see it as someone who is different, and it's embracing difference.
And a successful life may not necessarily mean the neurotypical model, just family and children. It might just be satisfaction with who you are and the job that you've chosen.
Absolutely. I think one of the best examples is Temple Grandin.
Yes.
And she is very happy and sees herself defined by what she does rather than her relationship circle. And so her satisfaction is the cattle industry, supporting people with autism, etc. So altruistically, she's helped thousands of people throughout the world with her knowledge. And so there's a sense of self-worth, and that's what the person is looking for, self-worth. And it can be identified in many ways. And I say, what is Asperger's? Asperger's syndrome is someone who has found something more interesting than socializing.
For the folks at Autism Hangout, if you have stories of success of your loved one with Asperger's or ASD, please write it in. We need to document more of these stories, such as Temple's success, because we all know that they're out there. The last question: what 3 messages, 2 would be okay, do you want to share most with the world about autism?
Understand it, use it, and love it.
Oh my, understand it, use it, and love it.
Yeah.
Maybe we can pick up this on another time when you've rested a bit, because that is a wonderful answer.
Well, it just came out of the blue. I have no idea. You just asked it, I answered it.
Okay, I will email
Where
it
that came
back
from,
to you and
no
say,
idea.
we're going to talk about this again. This is really good. All right, Dr. Tony, thank you for your time today.
Okay, thanks, Craig. Well, good questions.